Hey guys, this is Joel with the Fincastle Pokemon Gym. This week I came back to a deck that I've almost done several times, and as I've said here before, I don't want to bring you something that does not work. I don't do deck theory. I'm not interested in being the first to be, hey, look at this cool deck from this new set that I'll never play, and neither will you. I don't do content for content's sake. I'll leave that up to the experts like Marvel and Disney. Torterra EX is another card that I love. Turtwig was my Gen 4 starter, so he's always been a favorite. However, much like the Golem EX from 151, Golem is my favorite Pokemon, just in case you didn't know. I hadn't presented a deck because I just couldn't make something that I was satisfied with. And sometimes it only takes one card to change that. First things first, let's look at Torterra. Torterra is a Stage 2 grass type with a massive 340 HP. Got 2 attacks, we'll get to those in a second. He's weak to fire, and he also sports a massive 4 energy retreat cost. The first attack, Forest March, is the focus of the deck. Just for 1 energy, 1 single grass energy, he does 30 damage for each grass Pokemon in play. He also has the attack Jungle Hammer, for grass and 2 colorless. It does 150 damage and heals 50 damage from itself. I won't say that you'll never use this attack, because I did in more than one of the games I recorded, but we are mainly here for the Forest March attack. Now, I said sometimes it only takes 1 card to change things, and that 1 card that changes things for Torterra EX is the Aero Zero Underdepths Stadium. Whereas Torterra was limited to 180 damage with Forest March previously, extending that bench to 8 Pokemon takes that damage to 270. To illustrate the difference, 180 misses support Pokemon like Rotom V by 10 damage. But 270 covers everything up to about half of the V-Stars, and it hits the most popular Stage 2 deck, which is Charizard EX, for weakness. And that's a pretty significant difference. 270 damage is the limit on my Mewtwo VSTAR list that I did much earlier. I'll link that below. And as I discussed there, while that is a handicap of sorts, being able to hit 270 quickly and consistently is just too good to pass up. And when you combine that with the 340 HP of Torterra, or more, as you'll see in my list, it makes a deck like this very tough to deal with. Now, this list has undergone some changes, and I mean a lot of them. I have had everything in here from Beautifly to Toadscruel, both the EX and the regular version of him, sometimes at the same time, to Hisuian Lilligant V-Star, to Iron Leaves EX, Radiant Serena, Rabska, Shaman V-Star. I guess that is the beauty of a deck like this, that you can tailor it to whatever you want. But for the stadium to work, I needed a Terra and a grass type, which cut it down to a handful of Stage 1 EX that don't really add anything to the deck, or Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. I don't like the prospect of playing just 1 or 2 and then having it targeted throughout the game, so I went with a full line of 4 of them, giving the deck a nice boost and draw power on top of meeting the Terra requirement for the stadium. This Turtwig, with 100 HP basically thanks to the ability, becomes a non-target for early sniping. Then with Grottle, there is a Grottle from Temporal Forces with more HP, but while the Brilliant Stars one is still in, his ability, Sun-Drenched Shell, is amazing, as you can get any Pokemon in the deck with him, so he's definitely the way to go while he's still here. Moving down the line, I think I've had Kricketune in almost every grass deck build that I've tried. And again, I went with a 2-2 line because much like Baxcalibur in my Chinpow deck, I think that if you put 2 in play, your opponent doesn't waste resources trying to target either one, so he just becomes a given for the rest of the game. He boosts Torterra EX to 380 HP, Teal Mask Ogerpon to 250, Superior V-Star to 310, so his addition to the deck is amazing. And speaking of Superior, he may seem like an odd inclusion, but hear me out on this one. First, the inclusion of a V gives you a place to play your Forest Seal Stone, which is amazing in any deck, especially a Stage 2 deck where you're looking for like a rare candy, or in here the Stadium, or even your A-Spec. But in addition to that, he provides a free retreater, and as you get energy all over creation with your Ogerpon, his attack, Royal Blender, lets you rearrange where it all is. That may mean loading up 1 Teal Mask Ogerpon EX, or supplying all the Torterra in play with a full complement of energy. Using the attack doesn't happen all the time, and often isn't necessary, but it can drastically shift the course of your game, especially a close one, if you use it correctly and at the right time. There are 2 cards that need to be highlighted here. The first is Lucky Helmet. which I'm sure you don't see very often. But because I went with 3 Arven, I wanted some tools other than just 4 Sealstone. I tried Lucky Helmet just messing around with the list, and I stuck with it because that little extra draw power becomes so important in close games. Other valid options would be Vitality Band to get that damage count from 270 up to 280 so you can knock out the rest of the V-Stars, or even Rocky Helmet would get you to 290 after you are attacked, of course. But I like the draw power of Lucky Helmets, so I stuck with that. The last card, as is the case in most decks, is the A-Spec. This time it's Precious Trolley. In the comments of my Hisuian Zoroark V-Star video, @Red Builds pointed me towards Trolley before we even knew what the full translation of it was. So props to Rad for being on the case. The Trolley in this deck is busted. It is why I went with 4 Ogerpon EX and 4 Stadium, because once you have them in play, Trolley lets you get everything else. Get any number of basics and put them onto your bench. And this is great even if you don't have the Stadium and Terra combo in play yet, because you can grab a bunch of Ogerpon and then just start drawing until you do. The Precious Trolley is ridiculous, but because it makes me able to play a serious Torterra deck, I'll allow it. Now let's get to some games. So I'm going to start out by just showing you a quick flyover of 3 different matches. The first one against Goldingo EX is a horrible matchup. You miss Palkia V-Star by 10 damage with Forest March. The Goldingo has resistance to grass, and the one I played against uses Rigid Band to reduce damage, and Professor Turo Scenario to pick someone up. You can see on this turn they used Turo to erase what I just did. As this game went on, it almost seemed like Goldingo was damage limited. I know it's not, but they seem to never be able to hit beyond 300 damage, so they would narrowly miss me on several occasions. I didn't have a way to get this Torterra out of the way, so I just dealt 240 damage with him. Kind of thought the game was going to be over at this point, as they knock out this Torterra and get to 2 prizes remaining. I come up from there with a fresh Torterra and finish off this Goldingo EX and take my first 2 prizes finally. It begins to look like they are running out of ways to get energy back in their hand, so I keep playing. They use the Palkia V-Star, who I believe was prized early on in this match, and reattach energy from the discard pile and then hit me for 300 again. I pick up that Torterra with a Turo Scenario of my own. Then I 2-hit that Palkia and start healing with Jungle Hammer over the next several turns, also knocking out their Greninja. My opponent runs out of cards just before he runs out of time, and before we both have another birthday, and I steal the win finally. This next one is a Baby Roaring Moon. The only Baby Roaring Moon game that lasted until completion, because now, as I understand the changes they made to TCG Live, I don't think you were punished for conceding a game. Yeah, the only one that I got was also a deck out. I swear, it seems like this deck plays 20 Roaring Moon, the way they just recycle them over and over and over. But as I mentioned in the Chen Pao video, most of these big Stage 2 EX decks can beat Baby Moon, whereas Chen Pao cannot, or at least not very often, because Baby Moon cannot get to those one-hit numbers. And this one never did. It was hitting, I think, 250 by the end before they just ran out of cards. And you can see this is just a montage of them again and again hitting me for what they could. It climbs a little bit each time, but they can just never get close to the number that Torterra carries with him. They did knock out a Superior V early in this one, and having that lead made them unable to use counter catchers, so they just had to attack what I had active. So they were literally just bouncing off of me turn after turn while I took 1 prize at a time and took back control of the game. And as you can see, here at the end they hit 250. They do take out a Teal Mask Ogerpon and finally take 2 more prizes, but they are already out of cards and I only have to take 1, so I just pass my turn and take the win on the deck out. This third match is going to be against a Miraidon Raikou deck with Area Zero. I know I kind of flew through the last 2. I wanted to show more of every one of my turns here, just so you could kind of follow how I set everything up and get a little bit better idea about how to play. You can see I've got a pretty solid opening hand. I'm gonna nest ball here, get a Turtwig down. I've already got 1 active against this. I didn't know I was playing Miraidon Raikou yet, but you can pretty much count on getting attacked first turn, so I'm gonna count on losing something. The Raikou can attack so fast in that deck. With that bug catching set, I got a Kricketot and a Grottle for my next turn. I'm holding on to my cart for right now. As I've said, they came back and took out my active Turtwig. So back to me. I'm going to evolve this Superior into the V-Star. Go ahead and get Grottle down. They did put the Stadium in play on their turn, so it saves me having to search that out. I could get that this turn, but with the little precious trolley, I keep calling it a cart, I fill my bench full of everything. We use the ability from Grottle to get our Cricket Tune and get everybody on my side that 40 HP bump. And then we use Arven here. Gonna get rid of Candy. Kind of was debating on which tool to take. I went and take the Seal Stone. Could have easily just taken the helmet just to put active and go ahead and when they attack me, get 2 more cards. Take the chance of putting the Seal Stone down and having it knocked out. It does not get knocked off or anything, but the Raikou does come back and knock out my second Turtwig. So back to my turn, I will use Grottle. Get out a second Grottle. You can kind of chain these guys a little bit before you evolve them to Torterra anyway. With that second one, I will have to get a Torterra, so I know I can get that in play this turn. We'll evolve the active one there, and then we will play Arven. This time we'll get a bug catching set, this time looking for energy and get that helmet. We'll play the catching set and gonna take the Torterra, but again, I think the 2 energies is the better play here, as I need to attach one to the active. It gives me another one I can use on Ogerpon to draw a little bit and get him ready to attack in case I need to. So we use his ability, draw another Arven. And not going to use that Seal Stone yet. Just going to hold on to that and hope it stays. We'll knock out this active Raikou. And with the first 2 prizes, we will get an Iono and a helmet. You played around for a while. They got bought up that Ogerpon that I was getting energy on and knocked it out, getting down to 2 prizes themselves. Just getting me into that time to play Iono. They do have Mew to draw with, but really not much else in that list that I can tell anyway. There's maybe a Greninja in that list, they just don't have it out. So I'm going to use Super Rod and get 1 of each Pokemon and a Grass Energy back in. We'll go ahead and use Grottle's Sun Drenched Shell again. And get a Turtwig back down. It's nice to have 2 Torterra in. If you can get 3 in, you're in definite beast mode with this deck. Use that net. I'll go ahead and get another Superior down because I do want my bench full. I'm kind of worried about that Ursaluna. That's really the only guy that's out of reach of what damage I can do. We'll evolve to the Torterra. I'm going to attach an energy to Superior in case we do need to do that. And then we will knock out this second Raikou. Kind of leaving them in a spot where they don't have really any energy in play. And I don't know if they cut energy for all the Pokemon in this deck. They did miss on some of the electric generators. So on this turn, they just used Boss, tried to catch my Turtwig active, and sent up a Zapdos to sacrifice. I'm just going to go ahead and instead of trying to play around any other way, just go straight with what they gave me. A little rare candy to the Turtwig they thought they had trapped. Attach an energy. And then we will boss up their Mew EX. We take out pretty much anything on their side outside of that Ursaluna. We'll just take the Mew, because that way I don't have to do math. And knock him out and take the last 2. In this match, my opponent tried to play around those beefy Torterra. And that, in all honesty, is probably the best route to beat this deck. As you saw in the previous matches, just throwing what you have at Torterra and bouncing off of him is not very effective. I have a pretty straightforward Charizard match that I was going to include, but I'm not, just in the interest of time. But what I wanted to point out in that one is what I've said for quite a while. In Charizard EX, play Entei V. That deck would be so much better without the Duskmar stuff, and in its place, replace that card for card with Entei V. I beat that Charizard deck like a baby Furseal with Torterra and Ogerpon, and their only attempted life was the Radiant Charizard to counter my grass types, which kind of proves my point, because if they had just 1 or 2 Entei, they would have demolished me. But that little side note aside, I think this version of Torterra is as strong as it has ever been. You never know what's coming down the line, so who knows what could be added to it later. I really wanted the Toad Scroll version with the EX and the regular to work, but it just had zero drawing power and was just so clunky. I think the maxed out Ogerpon and Area Zero counts are what make the difference. Obviously, the ability Groddle and the Seal Stone will cripple the deck whenever they rotate. Kricketune can probably be covered by Bravery Charms on your Ogerpon at least, but for now, this one is very fun. Like many of the Stage 2s, it's okay to fall behind by a prize or two. You just stick to the plan and hold on to Iono. And more often than not, she'll help you lock someone out late game. Again, maybe the Vitality Bands are better than the helmet. That's something for you to try out if you dig this giant grass turtle. Thank you guys for watching. Support the channel and excite that algorithm any way you see fit. Get out, go play, make new friends. And until next time, be not afraid. Later.